Tired of meeting.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And how about approval of the agenda, anything to,
I do, have a few things. I'd like to talk, at some point, I had a meeting with Alan Shepherd, to discuss, proposal on maybe farming overlay district for an ordinance revision. I wanna chat with you guys about that. I gave you a copy of the draft building contract that we're working on over. I'd like to give you an update on where we are with that and the status of my meeting today in Portland. And we'd also like to have a discussion of the role of the building committee moving forward at this point. And Jack Turcott's here tonight to talk a little bit about that along with myself, so those are the things that I'd like to add.
okay, motion to approve the agenda with those added? Second,
Second.
all in favor? All right. Public forum, public comment on any item not on the agenda.
5 minutes.
Just, yeah. Does anyone have anything?
Where's the bulldozer?
Yeah.
That really hurts, Joe. That was uncalled for.
Yeah. How about approval of the minutes of November 12th?
Jason's not here, I'm trying to help him.
Yeah,
Make a motion we approve as written?
motion's been made, we have a second,
Second?
and all in favor? All right. And no committee and board reports?
I was at the RSU meeting, but I don't have all my stuff.
Yeah, well, I was at the finance committee and I left it sitting on the desk, so. Okay, managers report, status on the theft of the Arundel signs.
Yeah, just to let you know, I've reached out to the chief deputy to discuss what the status was on the signs. I've also spoken to our sheriff's deputy who is trying to coordinate it locally for us. Indicated that right now they are continuing to look at some various videos. There were some locations that had video cameras that were pretty close to the location. So they're trying to determine from those videos if in fact they can come up with a pattern, if some of those locations have the same vehicle that stopped there frequently, so on and so forth. So he did indicate they were grainy, didn't know how successful they were going to be. Indicated that there hasn't been much talk on the street relative to the theft of these signs. So they're still working it, and hopefully they'll be successful in maybe trying to link somebody to it or something so we can find out what's going on. In terms of the signs, I think we're going to need to, the likelihood of us having them returned to us is probably pretty minimal.
Oh, they've gone.
And as a result of that, I will have something in front of you during the budget process to consider maybe replacement of those signs. I love the signs that we have. I think they were well done, they're durable. Hopefully we can get something to that likeness moving forward, but I'll have something during the budget process. Also had a discussion with Naoto in reference to this. He's willing to one-on-one match any solar package that we may want to put around the signs to illuminate them in the future. Again, we'll have that during the budget process. I'll have Naoto give me a cost, but he's willing to match it one-on-one. So That's a nice gesture, maybe lighting may help. I think the other thing that I think we need to look at is maybe relocating them. A couple of them were in obscure, very remote areas. There's a couple that I think that we can relocate them in a place that maybe we have more of a visual look by our neighbors in terms of what they are. Thinking of the one down here just on the Route 1, coming in from Kennybunk, maybe we relocate it closer to the VIP entrance. That may give us a better ability to, and maybe have it further out in the open so people can see it. So, some alternatives that we can chat about as we move through the process.
Does our insurance cover any of that?
We have $1,000 deductible per item, so, I don't think we really wanna go there, is my view. We had one that was taken one time and 3 that were taken another time. I guess I could pursue further discussions with the insurance carrier to see how they would, rate them, but, I don't even know what they cost brand new when they were bought. $2,000 maybe?
For all of them?
Easily.
A piece?
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say a couple a piece, $2,000 a piece.
Yeah, signs are expensive.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, Roger was talking about 10 grand for the
Yeah.
labor and everything.
Right.
Oh, boy. Okay.
And then the labor to put them out.
Yeah.
I think we'll get a pounder there, and we'll put some steel in the ground, and we'll mount them on that this time, I don't know.
Connect them to 480 also.
Yeah. So, anyway,
But the carrier's on notice though, right?
no, I did put the carry on notice.
I think we should put them on
Okay.
notice.
Yeah.
I-
Just until we get numbers, and
Okay,
maybe we don't pursue the claim because the numbers are big enough, but if they're gonna say we didn't get notice, and that's gonna be.
okay, yep, I'll put them on notice.
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't thinking it was $1,000 deductible, I didn't know how that was gonna play in, maybe that's why I just
But I
didn't.
mean, if the signs are $10,000 a piece,
And then that's,
it cost us
right,
$1,000 for
Yeah.
4 signs.
Yeah.
Instead of 40.
all right, I'll pursue it.
The other thing too is, you talked about there isn't much talk about this on the streets, but how many people really know about this?
There's nothing on Facebook.
Right, I mean,
Nothing
if
whatsoever
something
on
was to
Facebook.
get out,
Somebody
and
should put it on.
maybe, if it's okay to do that, somebody would put something out there, let the general public know in case they hear something. I mean, at this point now, I'm pretty sure they're gone, I'm pretty sure those signs are, they're either burnt or, they're gone, but you never know, if it gets out there and people know about it, somebody might say something.
Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah, I'm really exercised about this. I use the word exercise, you can choose any word you want to substitute for it. I think this was a real slight to the town of Arundel. It wasn't a prank, it wasn't kids, it was adults, there was more than one adult that did it. And 2 successive nights. It was deliberate, and somebody's angry at this town, really, enough to do this. I believe we ought to consider, you ought to consider, a reward for arrest and prosecution, to the point of advertising this. And furthermore, whoever it is, they're still angry, This isn't a one-time anger and is satisfied, in my view. And I think that we need to be very careful during the construction of the new town hall, that the contractor is well aware of this and is set up to protect their property. And I think we need to be thinking about it after it's all built as well. Because this was serious in my mind. It wasn't a prank, not even close. And furthermore, when new signs are put in, certainly lighting makes good sense. But there may be some way to, track things that get pulled up and moved too, I don't know.
There is.
I mean, they do that in all the stores, a $20 item that gets stolen and you can't get out the door.
They have these little GPS devices that you can put on those.
I don't know what the technology is, but,
Yeah.
you know, we don't want a repeat of it being done again either. So, that's my 2 cents.
Instead of track my phone, we'd have a track my sign, yeah.
Just finally on the one thing I forgot to mention to you, I think I put it in your executive summary, is that on the 29th of November, on Friday, the York County Sheriff's Department, along with the state police and other local agencies, will be doing a saturated patrol to identify impaired drivers in and around our area, so they indicated the coverage would be Route 1, Limerick Road, Campground Road, and Route 111 for all you folks that may be impaired as you're driving home, so.
What night was that again?
Bill.
So anyway,
Okay,
just
I'll
so
stay
you-
home.
Me too.
Mike's won't get our business.
So, what's the thought process on offering a reward?
Even if we want to, where does it come from? You know, I mean, the budget that talks about rewards.
Well, I mean, it depends on what amount we're talking about, and I mean, you know, you're talking $2,500 or, I don't figure we ought to discuss it a little bit anyways, but. You know,
Well, if it's tied to paying upon the arrest, part of it, and the balance on
Conviction.
the conviction, then it's long-term. We're talking years out when it would actually be paid. But it certainly gets the publicity. Now,
I think Jack's comment about ongoing anger and worried about the future's got some validity.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I mean, there's no
Absolutely.
question in my mind that our antennas ought to be up, you know. By offering a reward, I don't think it's the amount as much as it is the statement that, you know, that you're trying to do, something aggressive, to address this. The chances is probably 0. But
If it's too small, nobody's gonna stick their neck out.
For $500
bucks, they're not gonna do
Yeah,
it,
I
because
mean,
they'll be the next target.
particularly,
2,500 might do it.
Yeah.
particularly if
yeah.
it's an operation
Yeah.
that has a reputation.
Yeah, and we could make it clear that anybody that comes forward would remain anonymous.
May not be able to do that, Phil.
No,
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 gotta testify.
potentially have to testify.
you're not
And
gonna
then-
get anybody.
No, and all that has to be disclosed to the
Yeah.
accused.
Yeah, you'd have to put out a really large amount of money for someone to sit in front of folks that are willing to do what they did. To sit in front of them in a courtroom and say, we know they did it.
How do these
I don't see
anonymous,
that happening.
No.
how do these anonymous tips work? I mean, if someone calls the sheriff's department and gives an anonymous tip on something,
Well, the sheriff's department then goes, investigates and
Yeah.
verifies independently. The tipper doesn't testify.
Right, and the tipper is not given a reward.
Right.
Usually it's just anonymous, and then that's it, you know, you don't know who it is, the tipper never gets money, but as soon as you offer a reward, now that becomes,
The signs that have likely turned to ashes
Likely,
Or wood chips.
shortly after they were
likely
cut up,
ashes or chips,
Yeah.
right?
or chips.
You know, and
So a reward gets the message out, but has low risk or low probability then of actually having to pay it.
Can Tipper refuse to testify?
They can unless the district attorney hits them with a subpoena.
Yeah, okay.
But if
Then
there's
you
no
can't.
other, if there's no other information that could support a conviction, that case is done.
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody coming forward, you'd have to be able to corroborate that somehow, some way.
Right.
Okay.
God's sakes, John, just we'll put them back out.
Yeah, yeah.
I told you not to take
Let me
those.
see if they're for sale on one of these social
Yeah,
sites.
social sites. Oh, I never thought to look
That
at.
wouldn't be too smart.
Yeah.
They're gone, they're gone.
Okay, how about the status of the office to be open around Christmas?
Yeah, I have a request from the town clerk requesting that Thursday, the day after Christmas, be closed at the office, and then we reopen on Friday. Her reasoning on it is the result that there'll only be 2 in the office the day after Christmas in order to take care of any customers that would come in. Christmas inevitably ends up being a fairly busy time even after the day of Christmas, people coming in and registering stuff and that kind of thing. So I'm not quite sure how, I have no opinion one way or the other on it. We've had the office open with 2 staff members in the past, but I told her that I would bring it forward for your consideration.
Will you be there?
Huh?
Will you be there?
Yeah, I'll be there.
I guess
I'm not taking the day off.
I would make a motion that we leave it in your hands, you know,
You can if you want.
make a motion that, you know, at your discretion, if you wanna give them Friday off, so be it.
I think it's Thursday.
Thursday.
Or Thursday.
Yeah, Wednesday is
Wednesday is
Christmas,
Christmas.
they want Thursday, and then they'd be back to
Back
work on
Friday.
Yeah, yeah, that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that. Let you
Any
take over.
discussion?
Okay, thanks.
Scrooge.
Pass in the buck.
We pay you big bucks for something.
Okay, don't lie. I'll make it.
How to make friends and influence people.
Yeah, all right. All in favor of the motion? Yep, you got it.
Let me know what your decision is before it gets here.
That'll teach you to come to this board and say, I have nowhere to go one way or another.
How's the view from under the bus anyway?
Okay, 2021 budget preparation.
Yeah, just to let you know what we've done to date, I've contacted all the department heads to provide me their budget information by December 6th, including their capital expenditures. So we'll take a couple weeks to put something together. I reached out to the budget board to determine if Monday or Tuesdays would be best served for them in order to meet. My assumption is that we'll continue to meet in a joint session. I think that's very productive for us. They all pretty much said that Tuesdays would be best for them. So, we'll schedule Tuesdays unless I hear strong objections from the board. It seems like they could get all their folks there. So, I would say probably after the Christmas holiday, that we'll begin our process there and, get moving along on the budget.
Okay. And beginning work of the animal control ordinance.
Yeah, just to let you know, we have some folks that are very passionate about the ordinance, modification, so just to let you know, I've reached out to the folks, I've heard back from, the folks that I wanted on the committee, they've all said yes, they'd be on it. So I'll be preparing a date that we'll meet. My thought is, I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel here, I'm gonna try to take some documents that are already existing and try to mesh them into what we have. I expect us maybe 4 to 5 meetings by the time we have something that we can present to you folks. We'll make a presentation to you, you can ask your questions, if there's any other modifications, and then it'll be up to you as the board collectively whether or not you wanna hold this over until an annual town meeting, for ordinance revisions, or whether we have a special town meeting coming up that you think it may play into. I think it, would be up to you folks at that time. So, that's sort of the way that I'm going to move forward with this. I don't see it being a lot of time. I think it's just some cleaning up to do.
You have enough people signed up for that, that
Um,
said yes?
Yeah, I've got the animal control officer, I've got the, a representative from the sheriff's office, who's also a resident,
Yeah,
myself, and we have the resident who
saw that.
showed, an interest to be on the group, so I think that's enough,
Yeah, okay.
to get something done and get it in front of you, so. That's my plan anyway.
Okay.
So, yeah, okay.
Collaboration Communications Committee.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, I know Dan, and Velma and Tom were at the meeting the other night that the school board wished for us to attend to discuss these efforts that are really being spearheaded, I think initially through the town of Kennybunk, to try to put together a collaboration committee. And what they envision is to have two representatives from each respective board be meeting on a periodical basis, maybe once a month to start, maybe then trying to get agendas together of their joint meetings to discuss what issues or what may be pending that would affect us all, and have discussions on those types of issues. I think it warrants some discussion to see where we're going. I'm not quite sure. I sort of look at this a little bit different than maybe somebody else. I mean, we all, as elected officials, you all have duties and responsibilities to the office that you hold, and that you're gonna carry out decisions that are best for the community as a whole, as you see fit. This collaboration committee, I think, is a way of trying to understand maybe some of the things that may be going on at the school that affect us all, and trying to make sure that you folks are well aware of it, and if there's ways that we can help, I suppose that's what they're intending.
Or the other way around,
Project. Correct.
let the school know of what we've.
Right.
Right, for the
So-
other way.
I think what we're looking for is a couple members who may be interested in serving on this group. I suspect that the meetings are gonna be in the evening. I'm sure that most of the folks are gonna be working. I don't expect it to be in the afternoons. So I guess I'm laying it out there, who's interested in perhaps serving on this committee? Dan? Yep,
I'll do it.
okay. Good, I'll make sure that they have the notice, and we'll go from there. As soon as I know more, I'll let you know. The next thing is sort of dovetails right into this, the RSU 21 school board is working through their subcommittee on enrollment. And what they would like to do is that they would like to establish some sort of presentation for each respective community at a Board of Selectmen's meeting or one of your off nights. They expect this to be, their presentation to be close to an hour. So my thought was to probably do it on a off Monday that you're not having any business. And then we call a meeting and then have them come and do a presentation, and if there's any other questions that would be asked of them, we can answer them then. I think this is a way for them to maybe get some more public response on some of the efforts that they're undertaking at this point, and to try to provide as much information to the public as they possibly can before the committee makes their recommendations on the enrollment process, so.
On
Are they
that,
part of the school board? Are these committee members part of the school board? Because they meet on the opposite Monday from.
Right, there are people that are
Yes.
part of this committee that are on the school board, yes, right. They've thrown out a couple dates for me, the 13th and the 27th of January. So I told them that either one may be available, just let us know what fits for them, and then we'll coordinate that accordingly.
On that note, so the enrollment committee was supposed to have something for the board, the month of, I think it was November. In November, they were supposed to come to the board and give, and they've asked for an extension for that into February, so this kind of ties into that. They're still working all those issues, so I guess they've run into a whole bunch more scenarios that they've come up with, so.
So, if I don't have any strong objections, I will coordinate that and advise you all when that will occur.
Okay. Farm and overlay district?
Yeah, we can chat about that right now. Attorney Shepherd represents Mr. Panett in reference to trying to figure out what the town can do in order to allow Mr. Panett to continue to operate or expand his farming operation, agricultural operation a little bit more than what he is able to now. Alan came in and spoke to me, and really his thought on this was, I really don't wanna come and sit in front of the Board of Selectmen unless you're willing to listen to what we have to say and see if we can garner support within the board prior to going forward with some sort of overlay district. His thought, talking with Tad, was that maybe the best way to handle this would be with what he described as a farming overlay district. So I'm not quite sure of the whole concept yet, but he didn't want to spin his wheels. If you guys were objectionable to having the discussion, then he's not willing to, spend his client's money if it doesn't look like you wanna listen to it and see what kind of interest it may spur. So, correct me if I'm wrong, you folks may know this, but I think this was proposed once before, or maybe it didn't get to the final proposal for the overlay district. Do you recall that we ever got there? Okay.
We've had overlay districts before,
Okay.
but that all got taken out. Can't remember what the overlay district was, we had something a while back, but it's been a long time.
We
Okay.
have the mobile home park overlay district.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
a mobile home overlay, and there was
Okay.
one. other.
Shoreland's called an overlay district, but.
Yeah.
Do we have some kind of overlay down Route 111?
No, that was proposed, but we didn't do that.
Right.
Uh,
So, I mean, why are they going that route rather than just change the use?
Well, I'm not sure. That may be a great question to ask, if in fact you wanna carry on this discussion with them.
But why isn't he from the planning board first?
Yeah.
I think,
This is an ordinance change.
I understand that. I think that, I think they wanted, I think he wants to try to find what kind of support may be rendering within the town as a whole through the board, to see if it's something that you think we should consider, and then they could take that recommendation on to
I suspect they're probably worried the planning board's just gonna shoot it down right from the start.
That's what it sounds like.
Sounds like an end run, right?
But
Yeah.
he still has avenue, they can still do the
Correct.
citizens petition. and,
Correct.
Mhm.
you know.
So what's your general thoughts on it?
You don't really go to the planning board first, it doesn't,
Okay.
but that doesn't make what we think.
And then if the planning board won't work with them, then,
And come back and complain if that's the case, but,
But there are steps in the ordinance for them to proceed, which, we have nothing, unless it's us that come up with
Right.
something for the plan.
Correct.
I mean, it's, to me,
There's a process already in place.
there's a process to do that, and I mean, from my perspective, I would listen at a public hearing and at a planning board meeting to see what they've got to say.
Okay. Thought I'd lay it out there, go from there, thank you.
consensus docs.
Your building contractor, again, the business.
Oh. Do you wanna take that or the building committee role, or work the two of them together?
Well, I can, if you wanna do the contracts first, I can tell you where I am right now. I had a meeting today with Port City Architecture, the building contractor, Bennett Engineering, Structural Integrity. What our goal was today was to go over the value management process that we had instilled when we met with him, with Willette, and to turn that into documents that will then be final documents that will be able to be used moving forward. So we talked about a plethora of things related to that. But the reason I bring this document up is that this was proposed by Willette Construction to the town for consideration for signing. I immediately took this document, sent it to our town attorney, who is now in the process of reviewing it to see how it fits and what kind of protections, if any, are required in addition to what may be in the document. Things that came up that we looked at were insurance liability pieces, builder's risk insurance, that right now the contractor wishes for us to carry. I'm looking, I've asked MMA for a quote on that at this particular point. And then finally within the document, as the document is written, it provides the manager full authority to sign these documents and to proceed with whatever, I think it's under 4.8 within the documents. Let me grab mine. And I guess my question is whether or not you as the board want to continue to have oversight of this contract document as we move through it. And I know it's new to you tonight, and then any additional thought process within the document that you think we need to really focus on. I think
4.7,
4.7, owner
Which is-
representatives.
which is somebody other than you.
Yeah, I know, apparently, I saw that too.
Yeah,
I wrote that down. But the way they have it written is that what I would have would have the authority, the binding authority. And I'm not quite sure you guys are all comfortable with that. If you are, fine. If you're not, we'll have that rewritten. But I think that's something that we need to make a decision upon. I spoke with the town attorney today, and we had, I tried to approach this subject with Willette today, but I don't think the meeting was apropos for what they really wanted to talk to us about. I identified, I think, a half dozen areas within the document that I thought we needed to discuss. And then the town attorney came up with probably another 4 that she felt needed to have clarification. So, their response to me was, we have an attorney to look at the documents, we suggest that you just have your attorney and then work together to come iron out a document that comes forward. So, that's the way I left it at this point, unless I hear something different from you folks. But how do you wanna proceed with the signing of it, of any documents that are related to the project?
oh, sorry, yes, Jack. Yep.
If I may, are there any members of our building committee who might be able to provide some added value to reviewing this and supplementing your efforts?
I think this is just all,
You-
mostly
can
this
you-
is all lawyers mumbo jumbo.
It's over my head.
Well, me too, but, Steve,
That goes into another
Yeah.
whole area of responsibility that that to me would make me nervous.
Yeah, no, personally, I'd rather leave that up to the lawyers for them to, you know, we have a lawyer that's in our best interest working for us, and let them hassle it, and then it comes back, and we can make a determination whether we wanna accept it or not.
What does Lita say, how, when she does a project like this, who normally signs?
She didn't have an opinion one way or the other at this particular point.
So is your question that whether it's okay for, once they've done this, or whether it's okay for you to sign this, or
Yeah.
whether it should come
Well,
back to
the
us?
way this language is written is that I would have I'd have the authority to bind the owner in all matters requiring owner's approval. And,
But that doesn't mean that you can't come to us
right,
and get the
Right.
approval first time round, and then you can go back and you can bind us because.
correct, you've given me.
Because you got the approval to do it.
I don't have a problem with that,
That's-
that's fine, that's pretty standard.
Yeah.
And that's the way it would, obviously.
I don't think this language doesn't, to me at least, doesn't prohibit that.
Okay,
Just says somebody at the end.
Somebody at the end, you'll have
Right.
authority at the end, but,
Yeah.
you know,
I need
And there-
approval before I sign.
and there may be different levels here of, you know, what you're being asked to sign or approve.
Right.
Maybe doesn't need us, I mean, it could be pretty mundane, you know, who knows?
Yep.
There will be, trust me.
Oh, yeah, I'm
You-
sure there will
You can't be signing,
No,
Yeah, and we can't be holding things up.
Yeah,
or,
that's
exactly
you know,
right.
It's got stapled on the wall, you wanna sign this off. you know.
there's gotta be some judgment
Yeah.
on the town manager.
Yes.
You know.
I agree, you know, if you think it's something that you should come to us with,
Okay,
Do it.
do it. If, as I said, if somebody's submitting an invoice for payment that you've got to approve, and you've got to, you know, information that the work has been performed and it's been
Yeah.
performed pursuant to document, you know, whatever the
yeah,
design
whatever
was.
the documents and design was.
I mean, what are we gonna do? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I think you know me well enough, I'm not gonna sign
Right.
anything to bind the town unless I have authority from you
Yeah.
folks to do it, so that's just not the way I operate. That brings me to my next question, the contractor would like to engage Brex immediately to begin some of his process, and he needs an okay from me to move forward with that approval. You know, we're still waiting for, because of relocation of some of the trackers, we had to redo some of the permitting for permit by rule and a general permit from the Army Corps. So we resolved that today, in that there'll be a slight movement of some of the storage containment for stormwater. Some of that will be moved slightly out of the wetland, where we can relocate 3 of the trackers. They'll be a little closer to the parking lot, but still be within, they'll all be within each other, so it won't look like it's skewed in any way. But because of that, I've let Naoto know that he really can't start any work in there until we get approval from for permits from the board, from the PD, permit by rule of DEP and the Army Corps, so he's aware of that. There's some, I think what the contractor wants to do is have Brex come in, we're gonna identify we're gonna survey the road going in, where that's gonna be located, survey where the well is going to be located, where the septic system is finally gonna be, flag all of that, and flag the building footprint, the exteriors of it, so they can come in and begin to excavate some of the material off the top, so they can get to the point where they're getting ready to do their gravel work. So he would like permission to move forward with that now. I said, I'll ask,
Sign the contract.
so.
Just understand, we don't have any money to pay for that work.
Right,
Yeah.
right, well, I've spoken, we still got some, information coming in on the bond anticipation
Yeah.
note. Now, we have 60 days, I think, for that to close. As I read how this works, we've sought approval, we get the bond, we can we can reimburse ourselves for any costs that are associated with any invoices prior to having the money delivered to us. So, and then, after that, we would, begin the process of, securing the bond, so we're looking probably the fall before we issue the bond, so we'll be going through this construction summer through the bond anticipation note, and then according to, talking to the, bond council and the, bank, so that's the easiest way, because there's so many delays and there's so much time that has to go by, to make sure all the documents are correct before they're signed, so. Everybody's giving me assurances that everything's there, but.
So, does that mean that, like, throughout the summer, as they're making, we won't actually have the money to pay them as they're making?
We'll have the bond anticipation note should be ready to be signed in January,
Okay,
so then it'll be a drawdown, so we'll only have to draw what we need,
okay,
and then at the end of that, whatever, you know, once we sign the bond, we pay back whatever we spent out to the bank
yeah, okay,
at that point. My thought is that all that money will go into the municipal building capital reserve, and then we'll draw from there, so any expenditures will come out of that,
Yeah.
and we'll put the money back in to draw from that.
If we don't take out the bond until the fall, when we've been planning all along to do it in the spring, that's gonna give us another 6 months of interest that we're gonna have to pay on this temporary financing.
Well, they're putting that package together now, so I'll have an idea of what that cost will be.
Okay, because I don't think, as it stands right now, I don't know how we're gonna cover that cost unless we put something in the budget for next year.
Well, we may have to put something in the budget, but we'll have to wait to see what those numbers are.
Jack?
You are gonna have to have builder's risk insurance, at least, that was what I always had to do anyway, so. One of the things that builder's risk insurance is gonna want is a copy of the contract.
Yeah.
Okay? I wouldn't let anybody dig a hole until I had a contract signed, in my opinion. Cause you got, if somebody goes out there and their equipment gets damaged, or you have a liability claim, and you have nothing signed, you know, you have nobody to hold responsible in the chain, because they can say, well, I didn't sign a contract yet, you know, whatever. I just think that's really opening yourself up. I mean, I'd dot your i's and cross your t and make sure all your insurance is, you know, in place, and then let people on. Like, get your contracts in. It's gonna cost you time, that's the bad part.
all right.
It is gonna cost us some
Yeah,
time.
You're-
at some
remember,
point in
you're
time, it's
municipal.
gonna get real cold and they're gonna be dead in the water, but it is what it is, right?
Shouldn't we have insurance certificates from all of these subcontractors?
I think so, I think the contract alludes to that, that they have to be provided. Yeah, so I've reached out to MMA to give me a cost on builder's risk. The attorney, MMA thinks that we should at least ask the contractor to supply that builder's risk insurance.
Oh, good luck.
See, yeah, I think good luck is right. So I'm getting a cost from MMA, what that's gonna be. I did filled out their paperwork today, and they said.
What about his bond and all that stuff, is that all paperwork, all?
I don't have any paperwork at all at this point. The only paperwork I have is the
Yeah.
document to sign, and that's being reviewed now. So if I'm hearing what Jack is saying, and I, you know, more I think about it, the more I concur, is that nothing gets done until the document is signed.
I'm not as nervous as Jack.
Okay.
You're not?
No.
Me too.
But what I would insist though is we get an indemnification, if they wanna go in early, get an indemnification agreement from them.
Okay.
Any claims that are made by anybody out there for anything, they're gonna pay for it, it's not gonna be our responsibility.
Okay.
Who's paying them?
Who's paying who?
Who's
The
paying
subs.
Brett's?
It's gonna be their problem.
Yeah, it's gonna be the contractor.
Yeah.
They
if you want to
indemnify
bring
us
in
against
subs
any and
now-
all claims, if they wanna go in early, including payment for work performed, damage to machinery. They probably won't do it, but at least with that, we nobody's gonna be coming out knocking on our door, or if they do, we're gonna just point it back at Willett.
And he's gonna say, I don't have a contract.
He's got an agreement, contract with us, an indemnification agreement, that's a contract.
Oh, he's gonna provide one.
Right.
Oh, I misunderstood, sorry. Sorry, I thought Breck and.
So I catch what you wanted to do.
Sorry.
If he wants to get in early, he needs to have an indemnification.
Or indemnify against any and all claims.
So if he gets in there and gets that
Until this
work done.
once this contract is signed, the indemnification agreement evaporates.
Right,
Right.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Right, null and void and then.
I'm sorry,
it's off.
I thought, I didn't realize
That
you were
makes sense.
requiring him to have one.
It's all right, Jason.
I just wanted, just for the time
Yeah.
issue and the weather and all that sort of stuff.
Or someplace.
Yeah, he would
Trying to
like
get Jack in time here, you know?
Yep, I know. I know. Okay,
We're generating power out there in no time at all.
There we
well,
go.
that was the other thing. I mean, the owner wanted to get some trackers up, so he's creating power already. I told him to settle down. Okay, I'll keep you in the loop on this document here. We'll keep moving through it. I suspect the attorneys will review it and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's pretty boilerplate.
I've read this one many times myself.
Okay.
Is it stamped out?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say AIA, but this is all AIA stuff. I'm sure Lita probably got this.
I think that came from.
Well, I mean, everybody uses them, I
Yeah.
mean, all the big contracts.
Yeah.
Okay, we wanna move on to the status of the town attorney?
Do you wanna talk about the role of the committee
Oh, yeah,
first?
oh, yes,
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
yes, I missed that, yeah.
I think what, Jack and I have spoken a little bit about this, and we're just wondering, what effectiveness the, committee will have moving forward. And I've given it some thought. I haven't
That's
shared
true,
it-
I get some notes. in
Okay, I haven't
there.
shared it all with Jack yet, but, my thought is that during the construction phase, I don't see the committee having a large role at the site or reviewing what's going on there. I think that's going to be something that, we will do with the architect, myself, sort of if members of the board want to be down there, on occasion, the, code enforcement officer, and then our experts that we will have coming in on each one of those aspects of the project. So I see that as going fairly smoothly. I see where the committee may get back involved in, is we get into, the furniture, discussing the furniture pieces and maybe, the layouts of the interior, if you feel that the finishes is something that you wanna have them involved in. I mean, we have a pretty standard finishes piece, but, I'm not quite sure. I think the committee should be involved in any groundbreaking ceremony that we have. They should be part of that. And I'm just trying to think, Jack, what else do you have?
Well, it's basic, I mean, we did talk about it, Keith and I, and I guess I'm gonna be just a little bit more direct with it and say that I think there should be a meeting. We should have a quick meeting of everybody. We haven't met since town meeting. I think that meeting ought to be an opportunity to thank everybody for their services, et cetera. And then I think the committee needs to go into recess, in my opinion. And I know what you're thinking, cause Keith and I talked about this a little bit. You got some talent on that group that's kinda tough to say you're going into recess, but if Keith's as smart as I think he is, and I'm pretty sure he is, Keith's gonna realize that he has some expertise on that committee that he can call upon anytime as a town manager. I mean, there's nothing to prevent him from calling John and saying, John, hey, can you run some bond stuff for me or whatever? Or calling Jack or Rob and saying, hey, can we
Something
talk
doesn't
a
look
little,
right here.
can we talk a little bit about solar and with, you know, and just have a cadre of talent to pick from. But he can do that as a town manager without a formal committee, okay? And as I said, you know, that may be something he wants to do, at any particular time. He can bounce off ideas with them, you know, or somebody, and I'm thinking of Jason and Rob and some of the people, you know, that have, you know, lots of construction skills. I think the committee should be invited to take a couple of tours, you know, 2 or 3 tours through the building at different points of construction. Something that Keith can organize where, you know, those that want to can meet at the site at, you know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and, you know, contractor and you can do a, you know, a committee walkthrough just to keep them involved, with the progress and aware of where the project is. It's voluntary, but, and I'm sure that the selectmen are gonna want an opportunity to do, walkthroughs, you know, very similar to that. So I think that ought to be on Keith's plate. And if possible, I think, and I wanna be careful how I word this, but I think my relationship with Keith is strong enough that I can continue to produce 2 or 3 progress reports throughout the project, you know, and I think we owe the public, we started that, you know, keeping them informed, and just to say, there, we got your vote, we're not gonna tell you any, you know, it just doesn't seem right. I think we need to continue to keep them, you know, informed of the project at, you know, maybe 3 times during the duration. I think the committee, as Keith said, can you call it together anytime. But it should be as needed and for perhaps a specific purpose, but that's, I think at this point, you know, the committee did their job and stands ready to help when needed. And I think that's how we, you know, we address it with them.
Right, Dan?
So, I agree 100% with Jack. I think that, you know, the committee did a great job, it was awesome. I mean, we got where we got because of that committee. But we hired an architect, we hired a construction company for a reason. We hired them to do this job. And I don't wanna impede what they normally do. I don't wanna, you know, stick something in a way of what they normally do. Letting the public know on as much as possible is awesome, because that's why we got where we got today, right? We kept the public informed, and we should continue to do that. We use Facebook, we use the Post, we use whatever it is to continue to keep the public informed. And again, I agree, we put the building committee kind of on a recess for now, and let the folks that we've hired do their job. To keep everybody informed on what's going on. Again, I can't agree 100% with that. You know, when it comes to like furniture and what have you, to me, if anybody's gonna make a decision on furniture, it should be the folks that are using it.
That's right.
Not the building committee, it's gonna be the folks that are using it, you, the staff, they're the ones that are using it, they're the ones that, and we have a budget, and we know what we're gonna buy, so, to me, we leave that up to
I don't
them.
think there's anything wrong with Keith keeping that building committee group on, you know, on that computer. And, you know, every now and then saying, hey, you know, we dug a well today, and, you know, we got good water at 50 feet or whatever. Just periodic little blurbs to everybody would be a nice thing to have, and then.
And you keep track of that, and that could be in your newsletter
Exactly.
as you go along, hey, back on January 1st.
That's
we did-
right.
You know, we did this, or we did that, and, yeah.
And, I mean, Keith and I have worked pretty close together the last, you know, year or so, and there's no reason why we can't continue, and, you know, put some information out. I mean, I certainly am willing to do that, but I think the full committee, we can sort of take a break.
Well, I agree, I think we should have another meeting to express
We-
our
We do have to.
satisfaction.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Take a picture,
Yeah.
get a,
For all
get a
the work
group
that all the-
picture.
You know.
A little closure for us too, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
But at that
for
meeting,
sure.
I think we could have that discussion as well, see what everybody else thinks about.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna assume, Keith can just pick up the phone and call Rob or anybody else. I mean, I think we gotta get them on board and saying, yeah, I'm willing to take the phone call if there's something you know, or John or anybody, I know John will, but just to be sure that, everybody's on board with that, you know?
Sure.
But Keith's gonna have other people in this community that he may, call
Yeah,
upon
yeah.
with expertise to bounce something off him as well. I mean, that's what town managers do, right? They, so, to me, the formal meeting schedule and the formal group, we've probably done our job.
Yeah, you do a groundbreaking, everybody together,
Yeah.
bring them in as you.
And a
do,
ribbon
at
cut,
the end-
and a ribbon cut,
Yeah,
right?
right, exactly. We have a dedication ceremony or whatever, and boom, 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 we get everybody.
Is the contractor gonna fence this off?
I didn't get the feeling that he really wanted to do that expense.
He's gotta do it.
He, it sounded to me today is that he's expecting that he'll have people that'll be walking in and out of the location for a while until you get the walls up and get the building secured. I can approach that subject with him again and see what he thinks.
You gotta have a construction fence. You're gonna have a lot of people, town people, gonna wanna walk in there and see what's going on.
Yeah, I understand that,
And there's a lot of liability.
yeah. I think he's aware of that, but yeah, you bring up a good point.
Something right along the Limerick Road there, right there.
At least
yeah,
that,
Yep. Just
they
right
have
up
these
front.
temporary fence companies.
Yeah.
Not that expensive, and it just tells people that's
Stay
as far
out.
as you go.
Yeah, 15 cams here and there.
And to Jack Reed's point, he should know about our recent,
Yep.
loss, the signs, and we may have
And some of the
And-
history.
an angry folks out there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
maybe,
That will be an incentive for them to take
Yep.
more steps.
and maybe when you tell them about the signs, you tell them it may be a little more depth to it than just somebody taking a sign.
Right.
A little bit of history,
Some
maybe.
cameras strategically.
We ought to put a
placed.
video system,
Game cams or something.
maybe,
Some game
maybe where
cameras or
that,
something.
we got a new state trooper living there now, I think.
Yep.
I bet
We
he'd-
do.
Yeah,
he'd
let's not put a
cooperate,
fence there.
Put a video camera right on his fence.
Yeah.
I bet he'd let us do that,
I bet he would too.
being a public official.
Okay, I will
Does
express,
that sound all right to everybody, or?
with a big sign that says, "This state trooper has a video watching you all the time."
And a gun.
Yeah.
okay,
Okay, Keith, with you?
I'm all set. Yeah, so we'll chat.
You're gonna set up a meeting relatively soon here? The building, because I think we ought to talk about a groundbreaking.
Yeah, and people are asking me what's next,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I get it,
Before the ground gets too frozen. it-
well, I
we put a
talked to the
shovel in it.
contractor too, he said, we may even wanna have groundbreaking after we get started there, so you have some equipment in the background, so people, you'll have a visual too.
That's what they usually do.
Yeah,
Any that I've been around,
okay.
they get, the progress is already
Already
going.
started.
And like you say, the equipment's sitting there, and everybody's got a hard hat and a
Yes.
little shovel.
Right.
Things like security.
Yep.
primarily.
Yeah, I think it's important. Okay,
Even if they don't
Sweet.
have to meet once a month.
Alrighty.
I think it might be a bit
Okay.
premature to just tell
Status of the
everybody,
town
that's
attorney?
it, guys, thanks.
yes,
People
I
haven't said
believe I advised you in my executive summary that, Leah Rachin is leaving her practice with Berg and Parkinson, is moving to Drummond Woodson in Portland, starting January first. She's reached out to me, both her and Durwood have sent us a letter indicating, you know, giving us a bunch of, options, what we wish to do. Appears we can, you know, they've given us a bunch of options, we can either, stay with Bergen Parkinson and they'll assign another attorney to do our, work, or, we can send our files and transfer them with Leah to Drummond Woodson, if that's what we decide to do, or we can go out, and retain a new counsel to provide us, information and opinions when we so desire it. So, I spoke to Leah again today, you know, if you want her, she'll come in and talk to you, but I got assurances through her today that the hourly rate that we presently are paying Bergen Parkinson will be held by Drummond Woodson for the upcoming year. After that, it may change.
That was my question.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so I guess you know, we're at a point, what do you wanna do? Do you wanna stay where we are, or do you know, what's your thoughts? How do you wanna proceed?
I think we've gotta go out to bid.
Okay.
I don't think we have a choice right now. You know, we're losing counsel here, you know, she's going to another firm. You know, we shall find out, you know, get some bids from folks, see what their hourly rate's gonna be. I mean, I know there's not a lot of law firms in York County that do municipal work. That's the difficulty. And, you know, Portland's got a pretty cornered the market pretty much. I mean, my firm does it, but obviously we can't do that. But I think, you know, there are others around. Last time we did that, I think we got bids from Portland, Lewiston, Skelton,
Yeah.
I know put a bid in.
Yeah, Skeleton Trainer.
Yeah.
in Lewiston.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we ought to see who's interested in.
Put it out there, see what the field gives us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I guess I would ask, what would it hurt if we could retain her until such time that we find someone, you know, that is either cheaper or that, you know, we agree on? I mean, what forces us to go out to bid?
Well, I think the charter, probably. I mean, we pay more than $5,000 a year. in legal
Yeah, but I
fees.
mean, if they withheld, if they keep the same rate that they are now, what?
But we're now with a different firm.
Right,
We contracted with Bergen and Park.
right.
You cut that cord.
But the cost of the town is no different.
Well, we won't know until
Well,
what kind of hourly rates are coming forward.
for a year.
If we cut off with Bergen Parkinson, do we have to pay them something?
Nope.
No.
no, but
The only thing we have to pay them would be any work that she's
That she's
doing
done.
for us at this point, and then.
Up
even
until
into
January first.
Well, even if she's still working on some work that we have as of January, we could retain her to do that, but any new work,
Whatever's on her docket today, we,
any new work would then go to somebody else if you so desire.
Well, maybe to them. I mean, maybe we get a commitment from them to hold the rate for longer than
Right.
Yeah,
1 year.
yeah.
And maybe in our proposal, something we're looking for
A long time.
longer term relationship than 1 year. I mean, no offense to my brothers and sisters in Portland, but
Is there any advantage to staying with a local firm like Bergen Parkinson, Tom?
the cost generally is much more expensive in Portland. The hourly
Yeah.
rates are significantly different from law firms in York County.
Hmm.
As much as we try to raise them, we can't beat those guys.
what does our contract say with Bergen Parkinson? I mean, it's not with Leah, it's with the firm, right?
Right.
So,
What I'm getting at is, if Leah goes and we decided to stay with Bergen Parkinson, can that be justified without going out to bids and, you know, getting into another big rigmarole?
My guess if we don't change the firm,
Right, yeah, because
Yeah.
the contract isn't Leah, the contract is a
contract
firm.
with
Yeah.
you.
Right.
They would just assign another municipal attorney.
Do they have anybody?
They do have one right now. She's new. Erin Singh, brand new.
That's,
A little scary.
there's another issue.
Graduated from Thornton last year.
No offense, I mean, everybody's gotta start somewhere, but,
Yeah.
from my perspective, I think Lee has represented us very well. I mean, I don't know all of the details, but from what I can gather, she's represented us very well.
Yeah, it's
And
a loss for us.
You know, I hate to see her go, but.
When they say this other girl is brand new, is she brand new right out of law school, or
She's
brand
new
new
to,
just
she's new
moved
to
from
the area,
another
I think
practice?
if I read the bio right, I think she was practicing in the Midwest and has relocated to this location. Matter of fact, she lives in Arundel.
So she might have some legitimate experience, just not in this area.
Yeah, I was getting some vibes of that she may not really appreciate or wanna delve into municipal law as much as maybe somebody else who has a zeal for it. So that may be a limiting factor for us. Yeah, I have no objections, whatever you guys wanna do here. Tom brings up a good point, I'm not quite sure how that works, but, yeah, since I've been here, you have retained Bergen Parkinson and Leah Rachin to do your legal work. The last time I went out to, bid for an attorney, I did it in Farmington, New Hampshire, we had 6 that interviewed, and we hired a Carrie Ann Roman from Drummond and Woodson. She works out of the Manchester office. But, and the funny thing was, she was the only one that walked in all by herself and said, I'm doing your legal work, this is my experience, blah, blah, blah. And people were blown away by her attitude, where all the other firms came in,
They all
they had the
partners.
managing partners, and everybody else is in front of you, asking, you're asking your questions, so if that's the route we wanna go, that's fine. We can put something together and get it done.
I'd like to stay local if we could, I'm not gonna say I'm not crazy about Drummond Woodson, but,
Yeah, I'd like to stay local too.
But if we
It's
can
nice
get
to be
them,
able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody
Yeah.
and then go to their office if I have to.
yeah.
They're right there, I have to travel all the way to Portland to meet with an
And
attorney.
before Leah, we had Milda, and Milda lives right here in town, so. We've kind of always tried to stay as local as possible.
Okay. So, I guess, let me just get a little more clarity on this. I don't have a problem going out to bid, obviously, that's what we intend to do. But say we get to January 1, are we gonna remain our information with Bergen Parkinson as of January 1 and leave it there until we make a final decision and then have it transferred? Okay.
If it gets transferred.
I think we
If it
need
gets
to.
transferred, okay. Alright,
I don't know if you still have the last, we got written submissions from the firms the last time we went out.
okay,
If those are around, maybe you can find the RFP or whatever we
Okay.
put out. We sent to a variety of firms around.
Todd did it, didn't he?
I can't remember who did that.
Todd did it, I think it was.
okay. We'll search our archive and see what we have, put something together. Okay, we got some time to
Yeah.
deal with it, alright.
not a whole lot of time.
Yeah, not a lot of time.
Yeah. Okay, write-off motorhome taxes and campgrounds.
Yeah, the tax collector has worked diligently to try to get, these mobile homes, or motorhomes that have now left town, to collect, and right now she's seeking a write-off from the, 4 that she's identified within the memo that I provided to you. It looks like 3 were at Red Apple, and 1 was at Hemlock Grove. As I understand, talking to her, this was something that's been done in the past, and generally what happens here, oftentimes Red Apple and Hemlock try to work with us, but on occasion, some of these folks sort of slip out and don't pay their tax as of April first, and then they're gone. And, then we have a heck of a time collecting it because it's not here anymore.
Yeah, we've had this discussion before on
Yeah.
how do we stop this, or how do
Yeah.
we, you know, there's been discussion of holding the campground themselves liable for this.
Right.
But,
So in this case, Simone has put together a list, and I'd be seeking a motion and a second if this is something you wish to do.
I'll make a motion that, we write off the $1,804.47 on these accounts.
Okay, I have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right,
I have
Can
them right
you-
here.
Just out of curiosity,
There's two of them, if you could sign them for me, that'd be great.
can you have someone or somebody check over the years how much we've written off for this?
Yep.
Maybe the last 50 years.
What's the chances of them campers coming back next summer?
I don't think so.
And if they did,
With a
would
newer
they have
camper.
Yeah, I don't think they're coming back. I think these are folks that have actually left. They're not returning. I think that, we would have a leg up if they were staying. And I know like in Hemlock Grove and Red Apple, oftentimes those units stay right there year round. And folks come back and use them. In this case, I think they've actually just taken them and left.
okay. Approve the payables warrant,
Oh,
Second.
all in favor? All righty. Any other business?
motion to adjourn at 8:13.
Do we have a second?
second?
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor? There we go.
Thanks.
Oh, I get to, there we go. I got to use
Keith,
the
look at your
gavel.
calendar.